Hello ladies, I'm Mrs. Sherman and I have a blog for which I am making these videos, and that's why I don't have comments on my YouTube channel. But I'd love for you, if you're new, to go over and see what we're all about and make comments, and also look on my sidebar and go visit some of the other homemakers. I'm making these videos for homemakers who feel a little isolated, which of course is natural because that's what our work is all about, and what our life, it isn't just work either, it's just making a home and a family, and keeping people safe and comfortable in your house. And this cannot be done in a large group, and so you will feel isolated, and the whole matter is getting used to it. But I can keep you company maybe, and you can get a few things done if you want to listen. I don't have anything to show you here. I love watching videos of people keeping house and making things, but they take time, and I have to sit still and watch it, and I'm tied down. So if you would like to just go do something that's repetitive, or that you need to get done, that you've been putting off. In fact, I think Fly Lady has a day in which it's called the No Procrastination Day, and that's the day things that you put off, you do. And I've noticed myself how many times I'll look at something that needs to be done and I'll just walk past it, and you get used to seeing it after a while and don't realize that it's not getting done. Well, today I am going to do my 3 subjects, and one is preparation and getting ready and taking care of your appearance, and the other is your approach to your work or just to the home. And like I said, we should not always look at it as though it's just work. And also dealing with attitudes and keeping a positive mind when we're doing it. So I want to start today by telling you this is one of the plaid shirts I have. I think I've been through my plaid shirt phase. This is probably the last one I have, and it's one of the flannel ones, which means it's 100% cotton, and it's from Walmart. It was one of the Time and True garments that I got there when they were having a big sale. And I searched for a teacup, and all I could find was that would really go with was this one here, right here, and it's by Stitch Call, Gracie Bone China, and I like it, of course, that there's a flower on the inside, and I don't know why I get such a kick out of that. I think it's just you get more for your money. And I bought this at Home Goods, which is TJ Maxx or Marshall's or something like that. And one of the things I like about these new teacups is they're just better. They're just a lot better. I enjoy using them, and I also, I bought this a couple of years ago. They're usually from $3.99 to $5.99, so they're really actually cheaper than going to Goodwill or to your thrift store. The thrift stores and the tea rooms and the antique stores, they're almost $15 a cup now or more. Sometimes they're $25 a cup. So to me, this is a better deal, and I like it. I like them better. You put them in the dishwasher. And then a year later, I went back and I noticed they had a matching teapot. Isn't that exciting? So now I have 3 of these cups. I couldn't get 4 for some reason, but 3 is nice. Isn't 3's company, right? Not a crowd. So when I have 2 other ladies, the 3 of us just get such a kick out of using this teapot, and I really do think it goes with my plaid shirt. I'm going to probably end the plaid phase pretty soon. If I find one more shirt, I'll be wearing that. So today I would like to start by talking about clothing and getting dressed. Now, we all know that on the days when you decide you're going to just schlep around and you're not even going to bother with what you look like, is the day that somebody wants you to go do something or there's an emergency. And I will never forget the times that has happened to me when, let's say I will tell you about this lady that, and I did mention this before in a previous video, a lady who said that she always wanted to get dressed in the morning, and when we would go see her, she just looked like she was a very wealthy woman, but she wasn't, but she always had really nice clothes. And you can get very nice clothes even at Goodwill, because women tend to abandon them sooner, and they've still got quite a bit of wear in them, but she had really nice clothes. And she said she always got up and she was dressed and made up and her hair done by 9 o'clock every morning, because she said when her husband went to work, she never knew when he was going to need her to go and take her car and get him while he had his car serviced, or just meet him for lunch or anything like that. And they were an older couple, their children were grown, and I always remember that. I was probably 20 when I heard someone for the first time say she wanted to be ready in case someone needed her, in case her husband needed her, or anybody. And once you get known for being available to serve a cup of tea, it's amazing how many times someone will call and say, I'm going to be there in an hour, could I get a cup of tea? And we kind of have a little network around here of about 3 or 4 people that we know that don't mind this, that don't mind doing that, and we serve each other tea, and it's so nice. And the other day, someone took me to a tea room, and I'll have to tell you that the ladies that do their tea at home and make fresh scones and sandwiches and serve little hors d'oeuvres, their food is better. It is much, much better than the tea room. So really the only way to keep this revived, and the tea rooms last only a few years and then kind of fade out, because most people that have a tea room have families, and things change, and the family dynamics change, and their business has to adjust to that. And so the only way to keep the tea time alive is do it in your home. Pass it on down to your children and grandchildren. The first time I served a little tea to some of my grandchildren, they didn't act like they liked it at all, and they just got up and left. But the next time they came, I didn't bother with it, and they wanted to know where the teacups were and where the tea was. So it does have an effect on people. Even if you have ladies over that will say they don't like tea and they don't like tea time and they don't want to do it, you'll serve it to them anyway. And even if they refuse to drink it, or and you don't have to use tea, you can use tisanes, flavored berries and things like that. And I've shown you this on my blog before, where you take frozen berries out of your freezer and you put them in your teapot and pour hot water over them, and it makes beautiful color, a beautiful scent, and you pour them in the teacups, and it's just beautiful. And they will look at it like it's the strangest. You would have thought you were serving some kind of weird, mind-altering drink. Sometimes to look at people's faces when you pour tea for them, they look like just like they just can't believe it. And so don't let that throw you off, because expect it. But the next time they'll ask for it and they'll want it, and they get used to it after a while. What happens? Here's what happens. They go away afterwards and they realize how good they feel. And then they realize it was sitting still. It was sitting around a table. It was talking about pleasant things. It was pouring the hot tea, and even if they didn't drink it, they had that nice hot steam going up into their faces, and it's almost like beauty treatment, especially if you're using berry tea. And so then they realize, that was a really good break, and I feel good. And they feel happy. So the next time they come, they're a little more congenial towards it. And don't ever give up on anything like hospitality. And I know I've been treated pretty badly sometimes, especially when I was younger. I took it pretty hard. But then I noticed over the years, because I did not give up, people got used to it. And then they started behaving themselves a little bit more graciously, because they realized what a privilege it was to be invited and to be treated nice. One of the reasons ladies at home especially like to go out is because almost, especially in America, in the business sector, people are paid to be nice to you. They have to, because the customer is their living, and they want them to have a nice experience and to come back. If we could learn that in the home, that even though no one pays us to be nice to other people in the home, we are paid in so many other rewarding ways other than money. But I wanted to also talk about getting dressed and wearing something nice for the home, just in case. and not just in case, but because you are worthy and you're created in the image of God, and you should reflect God's beauty around the world that you see, and not go around looking like you're no better than an animal. So let's try to do better with that. And speaking of that, I've been reading more of this book, and I've mentioned it several times, called Simple Social Graces. And I believe that it was reprinted in another, it was by Linda Lichter, and I believe it was reprinted in another title called The Benevolence of Manners. And I was very interested in this. She has a section, it's about the Victorian women and the families. And she had a section on clothing. She had a section on food and on clothing and on the houses and on the architecture and on their education and on their toys, and I enjoyed it a lot. But she had a section on clothing, and I was going to talk to you today about what you wear to the beach. You know, do you dress? Remember what I said in a book I had read, and I told you about this woman who said she had to wear something pretty today because she was going to greet her flowers. I thought that was interesting. Well, the Victorians would dress up to go to the beach. In our modern time, it's very hard for us to understand this. But anyway, here's a picture, and I'll try to get another picture online and stick it on the post so you can see it better. But it's called Strollers on the Coney Island Boardwalk on a summer day in 1897. Show a sensibility about public dress and decorum that is in stark contrast to the modern era. So I want to show this to you because you'll probably say that's unbelievable, but I will also try to get a picture of it and also find more online of this era on the beach. Now, I have posted paintings on here, and we'll probably put some on this post today, of women and men and children at the beach, and what they looked like, and why they went there. Wasn't just like today. Do you get the feeling, especially even since I was little, that the beach was for sports? It was just for going and exercising, and even after the school was out in May in the summer, and they'd have a school picnic, and you were although we never ever wore shorts and jeans to school back in the early 1950s. We always wore them at the school picnic, and everybody really enjoyed it so much they wore their jeans and sweatshirts and tennis shoes, but they didn't really want to during the rest of the school year. But that was when they put out the volleyball net and played volleyball on the beach, and it was sports, and they had a campfire. But the Victorians, all the paintings and photographs of the time indicate that they went to the beach for many different reasons. And having had a mother and a grandmother and a great-grandmother that were still alive when I was younger, I had seen that they would go, when they took us to the beach, they would enjoy it so much. They would sit on a blanket, and they would get a faraway look in their eyes and just enjoy the scenery and the beauty. And it's almost like they were letting their skin and hair be caressed by the wind, and they loved the sound of the ocean. But today, when people go to the beach, they don't have any regard, I don't think, for what other people, how the kind of scene that they are creating for other people. You know, have you ever thought how sometimes we can ruin the scenery for someone? Sometimes you'll get a complaint from a neighbor saying, that there are people who have trash in their yard, or who are doing something, have their car parked in the wrong place, and it's just ruining the view, or they're blocking the view. But these ladies and gentlemen went to the beach, and they tried to respect it. They tried to respect the scenery, and it just was such a different attitude that I don't even think that we have the capability of understanding it. But years ago, I was at the beach here, and I'm out in Oregon, and there were some Victorian dressed ladies and gentlemen strolling on the beach, and I was in awe of it. And of course, I don't wear Victorian costumes every day, but I dress in Victorian-inspired clothing. In other words, long skirt, some little boots, and try to look feminine and graceful. And although it's not exactly Victorian, it's Victorian inspired. And you can still do that today. You know, there's a shop nearby here that sells the April Cornell clothing, and it's quite expensive, but at least you know it's there and it is available. But I saw these ladies and gentlemen on the beach, and they were promenading, and that means they were just walking up and down the beach just to go for a walk. And they were looking around, and the ladies had their umbrellas and hats, and the men had their canes, and they also wore hats. And so as they passed by, I asked them, do you belong to a, you know, Victorian ladies and gentlemen society? And they said no. And of course I know they were probably members of a historical society. But I was so amused because one of the ladies said, we are from the Victorian era, and we come out every September and go around and see how things are going and seeing if the town is keeping everything historically accurate, because it was in this little historical town called Old Town. And many American towns have an Old Town section, and it's called Old Town, spelled O-L-D-E. And so for every town there is in America, they have a historical section, and that means they have kept part of the original town that existed there in the 1800s. And so I was so amused, and I said, well, I would like to be part of this. What can I do to be part of this? And she said, well, you have to join the historical society. So she admitted at last that you had to join this historical society, but she had a lot of fun, and so did the gentlemen, telling us they were from a different era and talking about how different things were. So the beach and the ocean was an experience beyond sports. It was a time to really, and it also inspired artists, poets, musicians. I remember one time going to the beach in the olden times, and there were a couple people down there with flutes and guitars creating music, and I thought that was interesting. And the artists there with their little paint boxes, and you know, just taking it all in. And so I would just like to challenge you, if you are going into beach season, to try to experience it in a different way instead of sports. Dress up to go to the beach. You know, you can get beautiful long skirts that we have denim here, and we have the other fabrics that are rather heavy that don't blow around, and boots, and you can, or go barefoot. You can go to the beach and you can feel beautiful there and add beauty to it. Here's what I like to do. I like to make a dress that goes with the colors of the ocean and the sky and the clouds. It's always so much fun. Of course, it's always blue, some kind of blue with white trim on it. And a lot of the paintings that I've found, which I'm going to include today, some of them are done by people who were born at in the same year I was, and are artists today. They use blue, a lot of blue, and they have the fashion of the sailor dress, you know, that the sailor dresses in. It was kind of a replica of what the sailors used to wear, although that's all changed now. So to go to the beach, now I don't want to depress anybody, but you know what we see on the beach is pretty awful, isn't it? And it's not that people around here don't have the money or the wherewithal to dress better. It's what's being sold off the rack. It's so awful. It's the manufacturers and the designers kind of foist all this stuff on us. I don't know of anybody who demands that there be more slop chick clothing on the rack. And when there is something beautiful, it goes very quickly. People buy it quite fast. If you see something you want, my husband always says get it because it will be gone. And if you don't like it, you can always return it, give it away, sell it on eBay, whatever. But people are attracted to beauty. But when there isn't anything beautiful, they'll just buy what's off the rack. Now I have a control over it because I can sew. So I can sew my mood, sew whatever it is I like. So I want to move on a little bit to work at home. And now that you're all dressed up, you should feel pretty good about it, especially if you can put on a little bit of scent. You know, I showed you not long ago, somebody had given me some sweet peas, and I remembered that years ago you could buy this sweet pea cologne, but they sure did smell good, and so I looked that up to see if I could find some. Didn't have much success at it, but I just thought that was interesting. Now, my mother used to take flower petals, and she would cook them on top of the stove with something, I can't remember what it was, but she'd make herself a little bottle of cologne. I thought that was interesting. And so now we want to talk about getting your work done and your approach to it. And what I would say was, if you are, after you've gotten ready and you're all prepared and you're still having trouble focusing and getting things done that you have listed, that you start with something small and easy that can be done quickly, and then move on to something bigger, because it gets your blood going, gets your body going. And so what I usually do is check and see if there's anything that needs to be folded and put away in the way of clean laundry, or anything that needs to be like clean out a little section of a drawer, some small thing, sort a little small stack of something. And then somehow my mind gets to going in gear, and I'm able to focus better, and I can go on to the bigger jobs. As a matter of fact, instead of winding down at the end of the day, I'm pretty wound up. I get bigger jobs done, and it just goes more and more and more. And my goal is not to ever take it easy. That doesn't excite me at all. I don't want to take it easy. In fact, I find it hard to sit still and watch a movie. I would rather play it in the background while I go do something. So start with something small and work up to something harder. And I have heard people say they just reach over where they're sitting and they'll clean off a little table that's next to them, and it looks so nice and it feels so good, they think, well, I think I'll go do another one. So that's how you start and can get going if you're having a problem with it. I always thought it was a shame that children, well, their parents are trying to teach them how to work, push them around and yell at them and make them struggle to work, when I think you could probably ease yourself into it and enjoy it and see the accomplishment and do it for other reasons than because someone told you to. That's not very motivating. So I think we need to think about this too, to make people enjoy work and to see the reason and the reward and the whole effect that it can have on you and on others around you. So I want to move on now to time. And if those of you who have ever been employed in any job, whether part-time or when you went to help somebody out in their business, you'll notice that the employees that are very conscientious never stop when there's no customers. They don't sit around and wait for a customer. And we have to learn to do this. Right now, I'm waiting for company, but the beds are ready and the food is ready and everything is ready. So I'm not going to sit around and wait. I want to fill that time with something. Now, the reason that the employment situation is such that people keep busy when they are not waiting on a customer, they're straightening shelves, they're unloading boxes, they're sweeping the floor. People that work in restaurants are constantly working. You don't see them standing around. The reason is because time is money, and you're using up your employer's time and money. But now at home, you might not look at it as money, but you can look at it as value. So time has value, even if you might not be wasting money or making money. There's always something to do, and you can. It's so much better than having a time when it's so much better to be ahead, to have filled up time with something of value, than to be constantly struggling to catch up, constantly struggling. And what that does to your mind and your body when you're constantly behind and having stress cleaning and running and playing catch up. That is so difficult. And the more that you can get to where you're ahead, I like, I made a mistake the other day. We had canceled something that we do every week. We'd canceled it, and so it was like on a Monday. We canceled it, and for some reason, it made me think that it was Tuesday. And I'm sure I know this happens to little kids too, because it's got nothing to do with old age. But I thought it was Tuesday because I had not done the thing on Monday that we normally did that kind of marked that as Monday. I had not done it. We'd had a day that we had not done that. So I thought it was Tuesday, and I started doing a lot of things because I knew on Wednesday I was going to have company. So I got everything ready, and then the next day I realized I'm a day ahead. What am I going to do? But it feels so much better, and your mind is less confused, and you feel more settled and more balanced, more optimistic. So I would like to encourage you to be a day ahead, at least a day ahead, and eventually you might find yourself several days ahead or a week ahead, and then you can do things you really like to do. So let's talk about people now. I always like to do this because it's so much fun to, I look at it as a challenge. It's fun to figure things out. So I'll tell you one thing that you could do to avoid bad reactions from people. Now, maybe in the area you're in, everybody's like this, the kind of people that contradict everything. Have you ever talked to anyone who you'll say, it's a beautiful day, I'm so glad it's a beautiful day, and they'll say, yeah, but not for long. Tomorrow there's going to be a big storm. You know, they just seem to love that. They just seem to delight in pouring rain on it. And so I would say watch yourself, because if you are in a culture where that is going on all the time, it's very easy to be sucked into it. And as Christians, we're not supposed to think like the rest of the world. We're not supposed to be like that. But I have been around people who I even got rather amused by it. And I think maybe this is how Jane Austen wrote a lot of her stories, was that there were people in their home. I believe her father was a religious minister of some kind, and so as a result they did have people in their house, and she would listen to them and then develop characters. Often trying to think, there was someone else, I believe Samuel Johnson of England, who was in the Parliament, or he had written an English dictionary back in the 1800s, and he created characters out of some of these people. But if you've been around someone and they have constantly contradicted everything that you have said, if you'd say, it's nice for you, it's nice I have company, I'm so glad, because we don't get a chance to use this room very much, and they'll say, well, I use my room all the time. And if you say, well, it's very nice to have tea with you, I've missed seeing you, and they'll say, well, I have tea all the time. And they will constantly cut you off with a negative remark. This is a habit that many of them have. They don't even try. It could be they grew up this way, or this is a habit that they have, and they don't even know they're doing. And they think, now many people do it quite innocently. They think they are conversing. That's their way of conversation. That's their way of communicating. They don't realize they shouldn't be doing this. And I have talked to you about you young people. So this is advice from the olden times. Whatever it is, whatever little idiosyncrasy you have, you might want to look that word up right now. And if it is contradicting and objecting to everything everyone says, it might not come across as so bad when you're young. If you start growing older, these little habits somehow become more pronounced. They make your personality more, what would you call it, caustic, or to come across more abrupt and mean almost. You have to be more careful, because as you get older, you're going to have a little bit more kindness and graciousness in your conversation, because for some reason, when you're older, it just comes across as something more harsh. And you can get away with a lot. It's like dressing up. You know, when you're young, you just throw anything on. You don't even have to comb your hair. You don't have to wear very much on your face to cover up anything, and you can get away with it. But as you get older, if you neglect yourself, all the agedness is so pronounced, and it isn't pretty. It isn't a kind look. So it's the same with your conversation too. If you have habits of being extremely critical, if you target somebody and you're constantly trying to correct them, if you get in those kind of habits of being focused on the negative, I know that sounds a little strange, but it doesn't win friends and influence people, and it doesn't endear anyone to you. How many of you are attracted to someone who is constantly talking back to you in such a way that it's always the opposite or it's negative? Do you say to yourself, let's go see dear Miss so-and-so and see what she has to say? Unless, of course, you are writing comedy and you want to go test out the situation. And I've read a lot of stories and books about people who ran into people like this and created comedies out of it, because everything they would set up the situation where they would say something deliberately to see how that person would object to it. Well, I am just saying, you know, we can't control how these people act. It's very hard. And I've had questions on my email saying, what do I do with this aunt or friend or grandmother or mother or sister who is so negative? How do I handle that? I don't think there's much you can do to trick these people into behaving themselves and speaking nicely. But I will tell you, you just make sure that you don't do it. Correct yourself. You know, that scripture about someone who is looking for a splinter in somebody else's eye while there's a log in their own. Just make sure, use it as a reminder. When these people spew out their horrible barbs and they're constantly making everyone unhappy at a gathering or any kind of social situation or even on the phone, just use it as a reminder to be more gracious and happier with life. And when they say something negative, it can be a reminder for you to say something nice. So if you've got any ideas about that, of course, leave it in the comments. And I don't have comments on this video, and I don't because I don't want to monitor too much, but I would really appreciate. And if you cannot leave a comment for some reason, the blogger won't take your comment, please go to the left of my blog and click on that email and send me an email. It's always nice to get communication. So ladies, I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope you got something done. I realize I've only been speaking for about 35 minutes, and but you could run a couple of these videos together and maybe get something done. And I hope you have an absolutely beautiful day. The first thing you should do when you get up in the morning is to go outside and look and see what kind of day it is and observe. I'd like to read more to you about the Victorian ladies and what kind of people they were. And to a great extent, many of us have brought that down from our great-grandmothers and our grandmothers, and we still have an instinct for enjoying life. And they had their share of negative people too, and they had their problems too, I'm sure. And I could talk to you more about this at another time, but in the meantime, I hope that you have a lovely day, and I hope you get something done and enjoy your homemaking. Get up, make yourself pretty, make yourself smell good, enjoy your family, have a cup of tea, and enjoy life. Thank you so much for coming to see me, and thank you for your comments and your encouragement, and thank those of you who have left donations. I really appreciate that. That really helps. I hope to be making some more dresses soon to show you the patterns and get all that done. And so in the meantime, goodbye and God bless.